Alright, so this is my review of the Monoprice Monolith 15 THX rated subwoofer. Now before I get started, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. I need to keep that YouTube algorithm happy to keep my channel afloat, so I really appreciate it. Now, I always like to disclose any affiliate relationships, and I've been a Monoprice affiliate for a very long time. The only one longer is Amazon, so it's there. So if you want to order this sub, you can follow one of my links in the description. You can get it through Amazon if you want, or direct through Monoprice. Either way works. But yeah, this review has been a tough one to do. I've sent countless emails and Twitter messages trying to get in touch with Monoprice. I've been trying to get these subs in for review since they first came out. It's been quite a while. You know, and if you're a subwoofer manufacturer and you think your sub should be on my list and in my content, you know, watch this video to see if I'll be fair to your product, okay? Because I actually had to buy these subs myself for this review, and I'll be returning them. It was the only way I was told it works when I called. And this was their suggestion, so I had to order these and get them sent out, and this is all on my dime. So you know, just keep in mind the frustration I've encountered and the absolute lack of engagement from Monoprice as I do this review. It's frustrating because I'd like to review more of their products, and I think they have good products. I'd like to talk about them. And so anyway, and I apologize, my neighbor's running his truck in the background, so sorry for that. So here are the basics. You know, it's a 15-inch subwoofer, 1000 watts RMS. It's got variable ports. It's got 2 EQ settings, one for extended, one for THX. And it's one of the taller box subs I've reviewed so far. But they also came out with a dual driver variant, which I couldn't even fit in this setup unless I ran bookshelf speakers. Those are pretty insane, really heavy looking. These are heavy enough as it is. So I've always made a big stink about depth of presentation. It's a term I coined to describe how deep a subwoofer sounds, which is different than max extension, and you can see my video on that. Now, there's no metric that truly describes this as far as I know, so some people dismiss me as just ignoring measurable specifications. I can assure you that it's real, and that is measurable, and it's really important. It does make a difference. And I've got people coming at me all sideways, talking about wattage, driver size, max SPL, and telling me that I'm just being biased. And you'll see why that's not true in a minute, but essentially, driver size, wattage, and max SPL don't mean squat unless the depth of presentation is there. If it's not there, it's not something I'm interested in. I've had that experience before. So the subs right before these were the PB4000s, which I've had for quite some time. I'm very familiar with them, and as I always do, I plug in new subs and just give them a quick listen, which means that they're still on the room correction profile from the previous subs. So it's not perfect, but it just gives me a quick idea of what I can expect. Now, to give you an idea of the stakes here, this moment was huge. I'll give my viewers the truth regardless of any other factors. I've done that in the past, and it's actually earned me a reputation for bias, which is understandable, but the reason for bias is always misunderstood. So I checked out the Outlaw X13, a sub that by all rights should have been a serious challenge to the PB4000. It's nearly identical in specs. The problem is that the depth of presentation just wasn't there for me. Honestly, that sub turned me off for the THX standard. The THX mode in that sub was way too shallow. And, you know, in that case, I preferred the PB2000s that were objectively less in every specification. You know, to be real, I do have bias, but it's misunderstood. I absolutely have bias to ported SVS subs, but it's not because they talk to me or because they provide great support. It's because they have the deep sound that I'm after. So, I mean, if SVS offered me $10 million, right, but their subs were shallow, it would be a non-starter for me. My only bias is the sound, 100%. If it doesn't sound like a deep subwoofer, I'm not interested. I mean, appearance plays a role too, because you know, my list of subwoofers are truly subs I would spend my own money on. You know, that's the standard, but depth of presentation is an absolute. If it's not there, I'm not interested. So now I'll take you back to this pivotal moment of first hearing the Monolith 15. Either it'll be good and I can breathe a huge sigh of relief, or I'll be regretting this review and it could very well be the end of my channel. Now, I don't have a choice here. It is what it is. If it's too shallow, I can't lie and say it's great. You know, the results are measurable, so fudging the results is a very bad idea and basically YouTube suicide. Now, what I can tell you with great certainty is that the Monolith 15, the current flagship subwoofer of Monoprice, not counting the 215 coming out, is indeed a subwoofer that belongs on the list. Thankfully, I'm very happy to report that the depth of presentation is perfect. It has the deep sound that I'm after. So I can finally recommend multiple brands with enthusiasm rather than a few brands with the asterisk that, they don't sound quite as deep. So, if you have reservations, if you're a subwoofer manufacturer and you feel that I might not be fair to your subwoofers, I think this review should quash any concerns. Essentially, I had to do this review without any support from Monoprice, but they still get a great review even though I had good reason to be irritated. It really is all about the bass. But that's not the end of the review. I have a few more thoughts. The styling is good, but just know that it's pretty tall and pretty deep in dimensions. It's not a bad thing, it's just something to be aware of. Also, I was against the THX certification up to this point, but it actually came in handy with this sub. So, as I said, when I plugged it in and listened the first time using the previous room correction, it was perfect. It was pretty much, it was hard to tell the difference between the 4000 and the Monolith 15. Both of them had a similar depth of presentation, and it was all great. And so, but after I ran room correction, it was a little different. It was slightly uncomfortable. And looking at the graph, I suspect it was the relatively high infrasonic bass. So, and just for reference, I ran room correction with all ports open in the extended EQ. And it gave me a lot of relative infrasonic bass. So it was actually too much for me. And I switched over to THX mode, which tapered it off and made it a little more pleasant to listen to. Now, to give you an idea of the difference, the PB4000, the Monolith, had nearly an identical sound signature in the audible range. I couldn't hear the infrasonic bass at all. I could only feel it in my ears and my jaw, but I could definitely measure it. And it really, like I said, the only difference I could tell between the two subs was with the Monolith, with having that extra infrasonics just caused more pressure, and it was just a little more uncomfortable. But again, that's not a shot, and I'll explain why in a minute. But it's actually changed my perspective on infrasonic bass, because I used to think of it as a badge of honor for a subwoofer. In practice, I would love to see an infrasonic filter that cut off everything under 17 or 16 hertz. I also think an infrasonic filter could be useful, as far as demonstrating infrasonic bass. Users could flip back and forth to see which they prefer, or if they could even notice a difference. It's kind of weird. I would have expected to notice more of a difference, and the only difference I could notice was that slight pressure change in that, weirdly, in my jaw. I don't know why. And my wife notices the same thing. But keep in mind, I'm not throwing shade at the Monolith 15. Infrasonic bass is hard to reproduce, so it's impressive. I just personally misjudged how important I perceived it to be. But another important thing is that after some time, I got used to the infrasonic bass, which is unlike my problem with sealed subs. Sealed subs I could never get used to, no matter how long I listened. But with the infrasonic bass, I eventually switched it back to the extended mode and got used to it. It wasn't a problem anymore. It just took some time to get used to it. All right, so I'm going to break in the video really quick and explain an anomaly I had that I've never had before. This is something that's never happened with any other sub, and I'm not blaming these subs. I want to make that real clear. What happened was I was trying to, get used to the subs and things like that, and what happens with subwoofers is they break in, and over time, usually they get a little bit louder. What's weird is these didn't get louder. I actually had to turn them up later as they broke in, and which is okay, interesting enough. But like I said, my sensitivity to the infrasonics went away, and which I thought I was just getting used to it. Well, it turns out the shape of the response graph actually changed. And again, I've never had anything like this happen before. I ran room correction. I took the measurements. I was happy with the results. There was no reason to change it. And I'll show you that result here. It was a great looking graph. Like I said, a lot of infrasonics, but great looking graph, structured just the way I like it. It was good. And what happened was I thought I was getting used to the infrasonics, which was an interesting thing. And when I took measurements after shooting this video, I noticed that it's tapered off more. It didn't have the same graph that it did after I initially did room correction on these subs. I did room correction on the PB4000 profile, so I had the room correction set for the PB4000s, swapped them out for the Monolith 15s just to hear them, took a few measurements, great, it was wonderful. I was thrilled. I would show you that graph, but my computer restarted. But the other graph was taken right after room correction. Looked great. Again, a little high in infrasonics, but you know, all in all, nothing to complain about. It's just, I never had a subwoofer change its response curve after just playing for a while. I know nobody messed with the room correction. My settings were all the same. There was nothing out of the ordinary. It's just weird. And so I think if I had had the subs a little bit longer, I would have been able to rerun room correction, check it out, all that stuff. But yeah, also another thing I want to point out, I show a lot of my graphs as smoothed. It's not something, I'm not trying to be deceptive or anything. I'm just trying to show you the overall trend, and I think it's easier to see with a smooth graph. I can put up a graph right now that's not smoothed and see if you can make sense out of that. It's a little harder to see the trends. So, but anyway, I just want to break in and point that out. I don't think it's a reason for you not to consider these subs if these are what you're looking at. Not at all. I still think they're great subs. It's just a weird thing that happened, and because it's so weird, I cannot blame the subs at all. It's weird. It's a strange situation. So anyway, sorry, I'll get back to the video. But aside from the infrasonic bass issue, these subs are definitely a solid buy from my perspective. I had some doubts due to my experience with previous THX rated subs, but that all changed once I heard them. It was obvious, okay, these are great subs. The shape of the response curve is ideal in my opinion. The impact is spot on for the wattage, and it's a design I can really get behind. It's a great subwoofer, and I can't tell you how happy I am to say that. Now, just FYI, return policy on these is 30 days, so I couldn't go into as much detail as I would like in that time. And the return shipping is on me, and it's pallet shipped. And keep in mind, I'm kind of close I'm not super close, but I'm in the same state as the return facility. And I got quotes ranging from $331 to $430 to have someone come out and pick it up, you know, with a lift gate, put it on the truck and take it. Now, I also, just out of curiosity's sake, checked into what it would be like if you lived in Maine, and the price went up to like $800 to ship 2 of these back to the return facility in California. So that's something to keep in mind. So Monoprice, hey guys, I'd love to hear more of your products. You don't have to be afraid that you won't get a fair shake. I like what I'm hearing with these subs. They sound great. They definitely belong on the list, and I'm happy to say that. I'm thrilled. I'm glad that you guys did a really good job with these subs. It's great. I'm really interested to hear the Monolith 10 for some specific reasons. But yeah, and that's true for other makers as well. And I'm kind of looking at you, Rhythmic. I want to hear what servo bass sounds like in a deep bass subwoofer. I've heard servo subs before, but not in a deep bass subwoofer kind of subwoofer, right? I've heard them in typical subs, but that doesn't give me an idea of what it's going to be like in a deep bass sub. So I'm interested. If you guys want to get in contact with me, that'd be great. And others too. I mean, if I've contacted you to review your products, it's because I think they'll fit the bill. I'm not trying to do hatchet job reviews. I'm looking for subs, and the more subs I can recommend to my viewers, the happier I am. So that's my review of the Monolith 15. Hopefully it helps, and if you're inclined to support the channel, and you can follow my links in the description below, I appreciate it. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned for more, and please subscribe.